Title cut from the Zero Gravity album. We'd like to do a song now that Andre wrote. This song is based on a very close family relationship. It's a very dear aunt of his who lives in New York. He visits her from time to time. The last time he saw her, he's getting on up in age, and he decided he'd write this song for her and give it to her as a gift. So we'd like to play it for you now. It's called Bag Lady. out of McLaughlin. Called Passion's Purpose. Scott McLaughlin on drums. It's about time we turn Rick Blackwell loose. What do you think? Ferreri on guitar. Mclaughlin-Drums. Rick Blackwell on bass. I'm Fred Story. See you on the jazz show tonight on Easy 104. Enjoy Jazz Solid. Thank you. Woo!
Scott!
I'll get you to that, Don.
Let's do a song off the Zero Gravity House for you.